Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. This one is a story of, well, reclaiming control. I think we can all relate to that in some way. Pamela Anderson, she's been in the headlines so many
Oh
times.
my gosh, she's weathered her share of media storms, that's for sure.
But this time feels different. It's not about scandal, it's about her taking back her story and demanding to be seen for her talent, which is pretty powerful.
And you really see that when you look at two big events that happened in her life fairly recently.
Right.
You've got the Hulu series Pam and Tommy, which she had absolutely zero involvement with, and then her performance in The Last Showgirl, which is getting all this critical acclaim.
It's almost Shakespearean when you think about it, like a fall from grace with Pam and Tommy dredging up all this painful stuff from her past, and then this incredible rise with The Last Showgirl. What's really interesting is how Anderson herself connects those two things.
Right.
She said publicly that The Last Showgirl felt like the best kind of payback, like a way to show everyone that her talent speaks louder than any scandal.
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of what it means to reclaim a narrative. She's not trying to erase her past or pretend it didn't happen, but she is making a choice about how she moves forward.
How she wants the world to see her.
Exactly. And for years, the media has focused on her image, but in a way that felt exploitative.
Oh, totally. And she doesn't shy away from calling that out. I remember reading this interview where she talked about how the Hulu series just took her life story and ran with it. Didn't even call her. She even said it felt kind of, quote, illegal to her. I wonder, is that just a feeling or does that sentiment actually have any legal weight?
It's complicated,
Yeah.
legally speaking. Like there's this whole thing about life rights and how they're interpreted.
Oh, right.
But even if it's legally murky, there's no question about the ethical implications.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Her experience really forces us to look at how Hollywood treats its stars, especially women. It's like they're commodities, and their lives, even their trauma, becomes content without their consent.
That's so messed up. I read what she said about watching this series. She said, my stomach feels right now like it's just been punched. Like, damn!
Yeah.
That's someone reliving a deep trauma because someone else thought it would make a good story.
Ugh, yeah. And that's exactly why this idea of reclaiming the narrative is so important and so powerful. The Last Showgirl wasn't just a role for her. It was a chance to rewrite the script that's been written about her for decades, you know what I mean?
I do. And the critics noticed. It wasn't just like, oh, good job, Pamela.
Not at all.
We're talking major awards, Buzz Gotham Award nominations, talk about a Golden Globe, even whispers of a possible SAG award.
Wow.
David Rooney, the critic over at The Hollywood Reporter, and he's not an easy guy to impress, called her performance transformative and undeniably affecting. That's a huge deal.
It is, and it's so refreshing because it's all about her talent, her craft.
It's like, hey, she can act.
Exactly. It completely dismantles the narrative that the media has built around her for so long. And Anderson has said that this recognition feels different. It's not about, as she put it, those tawdry moments. It's about being recognized as the artist she is.
It's like she's finally breaking free from this box the media tried to put her in. And The Last Showgirl is interesting because it deals with themes of exploitation and reclaiming agency, so it feels almost symbolic of her own journey.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just coincidence that she chose this particular project.
Well, Pam and Tommy brought this immense pain back into her life.
The Last Showgirl really gave her this space to kind of like take control and tell her story the way she wanted to.
Yeah, like art imitating life, almost.
Totally.
But this whole thing kind of brings up this bigger conversation about biographical stuff?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Where's the line between, like, public interest and just straight up invading someone's privacy?
It's a huge question, and I think it's become even more relevant now with all these streaming services.
Yeah, everyone's obsessed with biopics and documentaries.
Right. It's like this explosion of content about real people's lives.
We're all fascinated by fame and fortune, but, like, when does that curiosity become something, I don't know, kind of icky? Especially when you think about how these stories are often told from a very specific perspective.
Totally. We're not getting the whole picture, right? We're getting one version filtered through the writer, the director, whoever's telling the story.
And that version might not reflect the truth at all. Like with Pam and Tommy, she felt completely misrepresented.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, what responsibility do these creators have to the people whose lives they're putting on screen? Should there be, I don't know, more collaboration?
Oh, absolutely.
More involvement from the actual subject?
It's about giving people agency. you know,
Yeah.
the right to control their own narrative.
That makes sense.
And there are filmmakers and producers who are starting to get that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're seeing more documentaries where the subjects are actually involved in the production process,
So they get to have a say?
right? They make sure their voices are heard.
It's a totally different power dynamic then, right?
Exactly. It's about empowerment instead of exploitation.
Instead of having their story told about them.
They're shaping how it's presented to the world.
Love that.
And I think another important element here is empathy.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Like, as storytellers, we have to think about the impact our work might have.
The consequences, not just the entertainment value.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in the drama.
Especially when you've got social media amplifying everything.
Tell me about it.
It's a recipe for disaster, honestly.
It is, and it's like we're all walking this tightrope between freedom of expression and, being responsible with our stories.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
It is, and it requires a conscious effort from everyone.
Not just the people making the content, but all of us.
To be more mindful, more ethical.
More human.
Exactly.
So bringing it back to Pamela Anderson, what can we learn from her experience?
I think it's a powerful reminder that even when narratives are taken from us, twisted or exploited, we can still take them back.
It might not be easy, but it's possible.
It is. We can rewrite those endings.
It's not just about reclaiming those narratives, it's about redefining them, too.
Yeah, taking control and shaving them into something that reflects our truth,
Our strength?
our resilience.
I love that.
Anderson's journey shows us that we're not defined by the stories other people tell about us.
We can write our own endings.
And she's writing a powerful one, moving from the pain of Pam and Tommy to the success of The Last Showgirl.
It's a pretty amazing arc.
It really is.
It shows her resilience, her talent, and her refusal to be silenced.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from the ethics of storytelling to the power of reclaiming your narrative. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. In a world where anyone can just pick up their phone and suddenly they're like a content creator, how do we make sure we don't end up, in this ethical mess?
That's a great question, and there's probably not one simple answer. But I think if we're going to create some kind of rule book for the digital age, transparency has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like if you're telling a story about someone else, especially if it involves something sensitive, you absolutely need to get their consent.
It's like that saying, right? Don't tell my story without me.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than just asking permission. It's about a real collaboration.
So they actually have a voice in how their story is told.
Exactly. Letting them shape their narrative instead of assuming, oh, I know what their story is better than they do.
I think that takes, a whole lot of empathy, too, right? Like, remembering that these aren't just stories. They're about real people and their lives.
Yeah, we can't just get caught up in making something that's exciting or dramatic and forget about the impact it might have on the people involved.
It feels like social media just makes that so much harder, though.
Oh, for sure. Like one little twist, one rumor, and suddenly things are just spiraling out of control.
It's like we're constantly trying to figure out where the line is between being able to tell stories and, not being totally reckless.
It's a tough balance, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's going to take all of us, the people making the content, the people watching or reading it, to be more aware, more responsible, more human.
It's been a really fascinating conversation, and I think Pamela Anderson's story is, a really important reminder about how powerful narratives are,
Yeah.
but also how easily they can be misused,
And how crucial it is to tell these kinds of stories ethically.
especially in this digital world where things move so fast. So for everyone listening, keep asking those tough questions. Keep pushing back if something doesn't feel right, and keep demanding better from the stories you hear and the stories you tell.
Absolutely. The power of a story comes with the responsibility to use it wisely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.